The city was waking slowly, but for Dr. Maya Thompson, the day had already begun long before dawn. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as she navigated through the early morning traffic, thoughts consumed by the surgery awaiting her in the hospital. A young child's life hung in the balance, a critical, complicated procedure that only she could perform. The hum of the engine mixed with the faint sounds of a city stirring awake, distant sirens, coffee shops flipping their signs, and the soft chatter of pedestrians on sidewalks. Maya's mind was sharp, focused, rehearsing the steps of the operation, the delicate incisions, the precise timing. Time was a relentless adversary. Every second mattered. Her white coat lay folded on the passenger seat, a symbol of responsibility and skill, but also a reminder of the stakes. She glanced at the clock, 30 minutes to the hospital, 15 to scrub in. The streets were busy but manageable. She pressed the accelerator gently, weaving through lanes with practiced ease. There was a sense of purpose in her movements, a calm determination that came from years of training and a deep commitment to saving lives. But that calm was about to be shattered by a flashing red and blue light in her rearview mirror. A police cruiser. An unexpected stop. In the beginning of a delay that would ignite a citywide firestorm. Dr. Maya Thompson pulled her car safely to the side of the road, heart pounding, not with fear, but frustration. A white police officer approached, his face stern, eyes flickering with suspicion. "License and registration," he demanded, voice clipped. Maya complied immediately, hands steady despite the knot tightening in her stomach. She explained calmly, "I'm a surgeon on my way to an emergency operation. It's critical." The officer glanced at her ID but said nothing about urgency. Instead, he began a slow, methodical questioning, asking about her destination, the vehicle, even why she was driving so early. Minutes ticked by. With every second, Maya's anxiety grew. She called the hospital, speaking to the nurse manager, explaining the delay. "Please tell your team to prepare," she said urgently. The officer dismissed her, insisting on completing his routine check first. Her pleas seemed to fall on deaf ears. The traffic stop, a minor violation at best, became a needless barrier. Passers-by noticed the tension. Some approached cautiously, sensing the injustice unfolding. Phones appeared, quietly capturing the interaction. Maya remained composed, but inside, the weight of every delayed moment pressed down. She was not just fighting for her time, but for the life of a child waiting on her skill. Little did she know, this encounter was about to ignite far more than frustration. It would spark a firestorm across the city. The minutes dragged on like hours. Maya's eyes flicked to her watch again, each tick a cruel reminder of the precious time slipping away. She tried to reason with the officer. "Please, there's a child in surgery waiting." But the officer's gaze hardened. "This is a routine stop," he replied coldly. "Wait your turn." Her hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white. She glanced around. A small crowd had gathered. Neighbors and commuters, sensing the tension. Someone whispered, "She's a doctor. Shouldn't they let her go?" The officer ignored them. His tone grew sharper, questioning her credentials, doubting her story. She pulled out her hospital ID, flashing it under the officer's flashlight. Still, he wasn't satisfied. The delay continued. Inside the hospital, the surgical team prepped anxiously, aware of the ticking clock. Calls between the hospital and Maya became frantic. Her voice remained steady, but inside, the pressure mounted. Outside, the growing crowd began recording, their murmurs turning to outcry. The injustice unfolding was no longer private. It was public, and the city was watching. The officer finally stepped back from the car, his face flushed, not from exertion but embarrassment. A neighbor, bold and camera in hand, stepped forward. "Why are you holding her up when she's on her way to save a child's life?" she demanded, voice steady despite the tension. The officer shifted uncomfortably but offered no real answer. More people pulled out phones, the glow of screens illuminating the growing crowd. Maya stepped out of her car, calm but resolute. "I have patients waiting," she said firmly. "Please, let me go." The officer hesitated, then nodded stiffly. She moved quickly back into the driver's seat, starting the engine. The crowd watched as she sped off. But the damage was done. News outlets had already received video clips. Social media exploded. The story of a black surgeon delayed by a racist traffic stop spread like wildfire. City officials scrambled to respond. The hospital issued statements about the delay and its potential consequences. And the community erupted, not just in anger, but in demand for justice. Because this wasn't just about one officer. It was about a system that often failed those it was sworn to protect. The surgery proceeded under intense pressure. The surgical team worked swiftly, faces tight with focus and concern. Every second the patient's condition was precarious. Maya led with steady hands despite the turmoil in her mind. The delay had shortened the margin for error. Her thoughts flashed to the officer who had held her back, oblivious to the stakes. Outside the OR, hospital staff anxiously awaited updates. Hours passed. Finally, the lead nurse emerged, relief visible. The surgery was a success, she announced softly. Cheers broke out in the waiting room. But the victory was bittersweet. Maya knew the trauma from the delay lingered, both for the patient and herself. The hospital held an emergency meeting. Administrators vowed to address how such delays could be prevented. The community demanded accountability. The city's police department faced growing scrutiny. What began as a traffic stop had become a catalyst for change. And Maya's story was at its heart. The city's reaction was swift and loud. Protests erupted outside the police precinct and city hall. Voices raised in chants demanding justice, respect, and reform. Local activists organized vigils to honor the surgeon's fight and the child's survival. Social media campaigns shared Maya's story, highlighting racial bias in law enforcement. The mayor held a press conference, promising a full investigation. The police chief released a statement expressing regret over the incident and pledging transparency. Yet, many in the community remained skeptical. The officer involved was placed on administrative leave pending inquiry. Internal Affairs began reviewing his history, discovering past complaints that had been overlooked. The public's demand for accountability grew louder. Maya herself chose to speak out, not only about her experience but the broader issue. Her words became a rallying cry, a call to confront systemic injustice head-on, and a beacon of hope for those who face similar battles every day. Maya's voice carried far beyond the city limits. Invitations to speak poured in from universities, medical conferences, and civil rights organizations. She shared her story with candor and grace, refusing to let pain define her. Her message was clear: systemic racism in law enforcement isn't just a policing issue, it's a public health crisis. She emphasized the urgent need for cultural change within departments, better training, and respect for all lives. Her advocacy inspired many, particularly young Black professionals navigating similar challenges. In her talks, Maya often said, "Every delay, every doubt, every moment of bias puts lives at risk, both inside and outside the hospital." Her efforts helped spark new initiatives focusing on racial equity in emergency response. Through it all, she remained committed to her patients. Her hands steady, her heart open. Because healing, she knew, starts with seeing each person fully. Not as a stereotype, but as a human being. Meanwhile, the police department faced increasing pressure to reform. Community leaders demanded policy changes and accountability. New training programs on implicit bias were introduced. Body camera policies were updated and enforced strictly. Officers underwent workshops on de-escalation and cultural competence. The department established a civilian oversight committee. Marcus, the officer involved, was formally charged with misconduct. The community watched closely as the case unfolded. Town hall meetings became forums for honest dialogue. Some officers expressed support for the reforms, others resisted. But the momentum was undeniable. The city was awakening to the need for deep, systemic change. And Dr. Maya Thompson's experience remained a powerful symbol. A reminder that the cost of bias isn't just measured in statistics. It's measured in moments that can change or end a life. As the investigation unfolded, more details emerged. Community members shared stories of similar encounters. The collective voices painted a picture of a system fraught with prejudice and fear. Local leaders organized forums to listen and learn. Maya attended many of these gatherings, her presence a source of strength. She urged officials to move beyond apologies. Actions speak louder than statements, she reminded them. Her calls for accountability resonated widely. She collaborated with lawmakers, helping draft policies to protect citizens and ensure fair treatment. Her advocacy extended beyond her city. National organizations invited her to share her insights. Her story became a catalyst for a nationwide conversation, one where the stakes were life and death, and where the voices of those affected demanded to be heard. The healing process was slow, both for Maya and the community. Physically, she worked hard to recover from the emotional toll. Mentally, she leaned on family, friends, and counseling. Yet, she never lost sight of the bigger picture. Her experience fueled her determination to prevent others from suffering the same fate. She volunteered with local schools, speaking to students about courage and justice. She met with police recruits, sharing firsthand the human impact of their decisions. Her presence challenged stereotypes and built bridges. Meanwhile, community programs grew stronger. Neighborhood watch groups, youth mentorships, and public safety initiatives gained traction. Maya's advocacy helped foster understanding between officers and residents. The wounds of that day remained, but from them grew a fragile hope. A hope that someday, no surgeon or anyone would be delayed, doubted, or demeaned because of their skin. In the courtroom, Maya continued her work as a surgeon with renewed purpose. Every patient was a reminder of the fragility of life. Every operation, a chance to make a difference. But beyond the operating room, she became a voice for justice. She collaborated with advocacy groups pushing for equitable treatment in healthcare and law enforcement. Her story was used in training materials for both doctors and police officers, bridging gaps between the two worlds. At conferences, she spoke about the intersection of race, health, and systemic bias. Her message was clear: true healing requires justice in every part of society. She met countless individuals inspired by her courage. Their stories fueled her determination. And as the city slowly transformed, so did its people. One conversation at a time. One action at a time. And Maya Thompson stood at the center, a testament to resilience and hope. The media continued to spotlight Maya's story, helping to keep the conversation alive. Documentaries featured her experience alongside others who had faced racial profiling. Her advocacy influenced policy changes beyond her city, inspiring national reform efforts. She testified before legislative committees, urging lawmakers to adopt stricter accountability measures. Her calm, measured testimony cut through political noise. She emphasized the human cost behind the statistics. Back home, Maya balanced advocacy with family life. Her spouse and children provided strength and grounding. She cherished quiet moments away from the spotlight, reading, cooking, and simply being present. Yet, she never stopped fighting. For justice. For equality. For a future where no one would be delayed, detained, or denied because of their skin. Her journey reminded the world, change begins with courage, compassion, and the willingness to speak truth. Community engagement flourished in the wake of the incident. Workshops, forums, and dialogues emerged to foster understanding. Maya became a mentor, guiding young professionals navigating challenges of race and identity. She encouraged open conversations about bias and privilege. Schools invited her to speak on social justice and health disparities. Her presence inspired students to pursue careers in medicine and public service. She emphasized the importance of empathy, of listening, of standing up, not just for oneself, but for others. Her story became a catalyst for education and change, one that rippled through neighborhoods, classrooms, and city halls. The firestorm sparked by her delay had ignited something far greater, a movement toward recognition, respect, and real reform. And Maya Thompson was proud to be part of it. Months turned into years, and the impact of Maya's story continued to unfold. Police departments nationwide revised training protocols, focusing on de-escalation and cultural competence. Hospitals developed rapid response systems to prioritize medical professionals facing delays. Community police partnerships strengthened, emphasizing mutual respect and trust. Maya continued to advocate tirelessly, balancing her demanding medical career with public speaking and policy work. Her efforts led to new legislation mandating timely responses for emergency personnel. She witnessed firsthand the ripple effects: improved relations, fewer incidents, increased awareness. Yet, she remained humble. She often reflected on that morning, the moment everything changed. A traffic stop. A delay. A spark that set a city aflame with demands for justice. Her journey was far from over. But the path was clearer. And the promise of a more equitable future grew brighter with each step. Years later, Dr. Maya Thompson stood before a crowd gathered at a city plaza. Families, activists, healthcare workers, and officers stood united. The scars from that morning lingered in memory but no longer defined her. She spoke with quiet authority about resilience, justice, and healing. Her journey had become a symbol of change, not just for her, but for the countless others impacted by bias and delay. As she looked out at the faces before her, Maya felt a deep sense of hope. The firestorm had forged a new path, a path of understanding, accountability, and progress. And though the journey was ongoing, she knew this moment was a milestone. Because sometimes, the most profound change begins with a single, painful delay. And the courage to demand better.